Morning.
Good morning. It started recording already. I'm not
I
sure.
know.
Can you pause it, or you will just have to edit it out later and start?
It's exactly on time, so I'm just going to begin. My name is Akari Yamada, and I am the first Vice President for PSIWA International, the sponsor of this panel today. So I'd like to just begin by saying welcome to our NGO CSW67 virtual event, How Women Drive Innovation in the Renewable Energy Industry. We thank you for taking time out today to join us for this program. It is being recorded. There will be 2 moderated question and answer periods today. The first one following the first 2 panelists, and the second one following our final panelist. Please use the chat function to type in your questions, and we kindly request that you give us your name and your organization when you submit your questions. There will also be a few things that we're asking you because we are very interested in your answers. And please go ahead and type the answers into the chat as well too. So the sponsor of this panel today is PSIWA, the Pan-Pacific and Southeast Asia Women's Association. PSIWA was established in 1928 and belongs to the Conference of Non-Governmental Organizations with consultative status in the United Nations. NGOs like PSIWA have worked to erode gender bias in all forms. PSIWA programs aim for structural and societal changes by furthering education for girls, financial and technical literacy, leadership training for women, as well as equal representation and protection for those outside of the formal economy, such as refugees and migrants. So we welcome this opportunity, this space provided by the Commission on the Status of Women to advocate for Sustainable Development Goal 7 in particular, ensuring access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy for all. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the socioeconomic and humanitarian implications of including women and girls in the renewable energy sector. Renewables contribute to national peace and security. We have witnessed conflicts and competition over limited oil and gas resources. Diversifying energy sources and using energy sources that are naturally abundant and replenishable can reduce a country's dependence on imported fuels. Access to clean energy, such as solar and wind, improves safety and health for women and girls, who are the primary users of energy in the household. Household air pollution kills over 4 million people every year, women and girls dying prematurely due to the harmful smoke from indoor fires used for cooking. Alternative fuel to firewood can reduce the exposure of women to sexual violence when they go out to look for wood, and can free up time for other pursuits. Solar-powered lamps enable women and girls to work, cook, study, socialize, and learn. Renewables create green jobs, alleviate poverty, and improve the livelihood of women, their families, and low-income communities. So a panel on Goal 7 is intimately connected to our other goals: good health and well-being, education, decent work, sustainable cities, and gender equality. And with that, I am going to introduce our first panelist. Dr. Suman is an international human rights lawyer and PSIWA's UN representative to the UN in Geneva. She previously worked as a technical officer at the Bureau of Gender Equality within the International Labor Office in Geneva, Switzerland, and was a special assistant to the director of the General Academy for International Humanitarian Law and Human Rights in Geneva. She currently works in a renewable software service provider and occasionally pursues her research as an external collaborator at the Center for Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability at the University of Zurich in Switzerland. And with that, I turn the floor over to Suma.
Thank you, Akari. So good afternoon, everyone. This is my second sign event on the topic of renewable energy at the NGO CSW forum. And I'm very pleased to be here for the second time to update you on the status of women in the renewable energy industry. My presentation will focus on the status of women in the renewable energy sector at the international level, with a focus on the solar PV subsector. And then I will hand over to my second speaker, who would deliver a keynote presentation, Dr. Eugene Chen, former Foreign Minister of Taiwan and Ambassador of Climate Change and Sustainability. And after Dr. Chen, we will have we will hear a grassroots perspective from Natasha Nuralenis from Persiva, Malaysia, to talk about her mobile learning application project in Sarawak. So with that, I would start my part. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Towards Inclusive Renewable Energy Transition and International Perspective. So the rise of renewable energy, according to the International Energy Agency, renewables will become the largest source of global electricity generation in 2 years. So this is much earlier than expected. So by early 2025, renewables will surpass coal. As you can see that coal is the highest of the renewable of the energy source, and then by 2025, renewable energy will take over. We will see afterwards the decline of the shares of coal, natural gas, nuclear, and oil as the sources of energy. The share of renewable power mix is forecast to increase by up to 38 in 2027. So when we look at the rise of renewable energy, we have to look deeper into why renewables. Akari mentioned in her introductory remarks about the implication of renewables. The advantage of renewables is that it has a low production cost. So the electricity generated from renewable energy sources is generally 15 to 20% cheaper, and is naturally available. Solar and wind continue to be the cheapest sources of electricity in the grid. It is forecasted that by 2050, almost all applications that we use today will be cheaper with renewables. And this has become very valuable for developing economies, which depend largely on both the accessibility and affordability of energy. It will also fill the gap of energy access and energy poverty in rural and remote areas. And this is thanks to the decentralized energy systems, such as the solar, the off-grid solar solutions that has made the electricity in rural areas more affordable and accessible. The implication for women is significant. The off-grid solar PV value chain actually engage women in rural area in both delivering solutions as well as empowering them as the beneficiaries. This provide opportunities for change in terms of entrepreneurship, also opportunities to learn new skills, and the paradigm shift, not just for women, for the community, for the younger generation as well. So if we look at the worldwide employment in renewable energy, is highest in the solar PV sector. overall, as the industry, we can expect to have by 2030, 38 million. So this is significant for women and younger generations who are looking towards the future, when the paradigm has shifted, that we are now moving into the sustainable energy. So they could be looking into the renewable energy and different subsectors of that. The solar PV is the largest employer for renewable energy, accounting for 4.3 million jobs in 2021. And it will remain the largest of employment in the energy transition going forward. This will be followed by the hydropower and wind, as well as the liquid biofuel. So if we look at the situation of women employed in the renewable energy sector compared to others, we will see that 40% of women employed in solar PV, that's the average higher than other energy sector, oil and gas, wind, and also the entire renewable energy together. This is still much lower compared to the economy-wide average. If we look at the number of women employment by region, we will see that the highest of women employed in the solar PV workforce is in Asia Pacific, followed by Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, and the European and North America as has the lowest. It's also important to look at the type of jobs that women have in the renewable energy sector. And in this case, we look at the PV, the solar PV sector. Women in solar PV are most represented in administrative jobs, where they account for more than 50% of the workforce. And this is higher than the average share in solar PV in general, which is 40%. They are not as well represented in technical positions, both in non-STEM technical and other non-technical, and it's the lowest representation in the STEM fields. So if we look at the combination of regional representation and the representation of women in the job by activity, we will see that women's share in administration and in all other roles, if you look at administration, STEM, non-STEM technical, and other technical, is most pronounced in companies in the Asia Pacific region. The heavy representation of women in administration explains why the region fares better in comparison to women overall participation in the solar PV workforce. However, we will see that Asia Pacific women in solar PV sector has very low representation compared to other regions in senior management. So I would like to look a little bit moving from the typical jobs that women do in the renewable energy sector. There are other initiatives, for example, solar grannies from India that provide alternative means of livelihood, boost self-esteem and self-sufficiency for rural women by engaging older women into the training in their off-grid solar solutions. We also have example from Africa, social sister entrepreneurs, solar sister entrepreneurs, where local women entrepreneurs can start, grow, and sustain successful clean energy business on their own. So these are very useful initiatives that do not look at the typical formal economies and the typical jobs that required official training, but also look at the assets and also the knowledge within the rural communities, and then leverage that in order to empower women, and not just women of the working age, but also from the younger generation to the older generation. So I would like to keep the takeaways for later. And now I would hand over to Dr. Xian presentation so that we can tie these two levels together, looking at the example at the national level in Taiwan, and we can have a discussion about it. Is that okay with you, Akari?
Yes.
Do we have any questions in the meantime that I should address, or I can introduce Dr. Xian now?
No questions, but I would like to point out something that I thought was very interesting.
Please
You
do
had
so.
put up a poll asking which subsector of renewable energy has the highest share of full-time women employees. And within your talk, you pointed out that it was solar. But at the poll that was given on the Hoover platform, actually people answered biomass. So it'd be interesting to understand that disconnect of the perception of what is the, where women are employed as to the reality that you're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the studies that I myself did, as well as this is supported by the study of the international organizations such as IRENA. The global picture is clear, is the PV sector, and the employment, because of the growth of the subsector itself, women are drawn, and there are more opportunities for women. So it's the PV sector. My understanding is that the person who answer biomass could come from the region that they are looking at the biomass as a renewable energy source, as the main source. And that could be in Africa, in Latin America, and in different sub-regions as well, because it has the availability of resources that can be used. There's interventions at the local levels as well that promote the production of renewable energy sources from biomass. Okay, if there's no other question, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Eugene Qian, a distinguished Taiwanese scholar and diplomat, and a professor in aeronautical engineering. So we have someone from the STEM field, and also the Dean of the College of Engineering at Tam Kang University. He was twice elected as a legislator in Taipei City before he served as the first minister of the Environmental Protection Agency, the Minister of Transportation and Communications, as well as the representative of the Taipei Representative Office in the UK. Later, as the Minister of the Foreign Affairs, and more than a decade after he retired from the civil service, His Excellency has dedicated his endeavor to promoting sustainable development in Taiwan. Dr. Xian now leads 4 NGOs, and he will talk about them today. So Taisei CTCI Education Foundation, Telecommunication Transportation Foundation, and the Association of Taiwan Net Zero Emissions. So his biography is long, and we're going to make them available in the chat. As I understand, Akari, we can do that, right? So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the floor to Dr. Xian. Dr. Xian, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Sumo. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Introduce me. Good evening, everyone. I would like to express my gratitude to Akari for generous invitation, and to the UN CSW Commission for inviting me to join this parallel event during the NGO CSW67 forum. I would like to congratulate the commissions for demonstrating their unswerving commitment to bring gender equality to the center stage within our community. The event is an important showcase of how NGO can collaborate to advance our shared vision, our sustainable development, and empower women. It is truly an honor for me to deliver a brief presentation at this parallel event. So first of all, I'd like to introduce my NGO first. TASTE is, as you see from the PowerPoint, TASTE is at the core of this diagram. As an independent NGO, our mission is to promote sustainable accessibility through our 4 pillars of action. We bring the concept of accessibility to our 6 stakeholders and interact with them through 11 actions. We have completed hundreds of speeches and broadcast episodes, and also host many events with more than 240,000 attendees from 70 countries. So I just give a brief about Taiwan's gender equality performance in next page. Okay, Taiwan's gender equality performance in public service is pretty good. Taiwan is besides we have the Madam President Tsai, we also have a high percentage of female legislators in parliament. It's about more than 42%. That is better than the world average. Next page, please. On the other hand, the gender equality performance in private sectors leaves so much to be desired. The proportion of the female chairpersons or general managers in listed companies is not high, with only about 140 companies, approximately about 14%. Next one, please. Still quite a few corporates care about the CSR, ESG, and sustainability. So they join the TCCS membership. TCCS is a Taiwan Center for Corporate Sustainability. It's a subunit of the TASTE with a total members capital amount about $105 billion US. Among them, the proportion of the female leaders is relatively high. You can see from the numbers. And these women in power are in charge of their multi-billion-dollar business, many of which are publicly listed. They have also dedicated to their work to sustainability and see the importance of acting now before it's too late. It is not a coincidence that they have all joined the TASTE TCCS. Next page, please. Regarding to the sustainable energy industry in Taiwan, the offshore wind power is an emerging mainstream industry in Taiwan. By 2025, there is about $30 billion US commitment, which will create 20,000 jobs positions. I use the title, with the great leadership comes great opportunities and challenges. Because this new business model presents numerous challenges. Communicating with the intricate network of the stakeholders is challenged as well. Next page, please. In the past, we are easily fell into the old ways of thinking STEM. STEM is dominated by males. However, surprisingly enough, there is a high numbers of the female executives in the wind power industry. In Taiwan, the wind power industry, although the female employee rate is only 26%. However, 95% of the companies have the female executives, and 60% have the female board members. Many of them are on the top executives. Next one, please. Another example is Google, a listed company on NASDAQ as a GGR with about $1 billion worth capitalization. It's a company in the field of the sustainable energy applications. It might be the world's most intelligent urban ecosystem. We call it the Tesla in scooters. Next one. Men and women have different builds and move differently. For women, lowering the stair's height makes the riding more comfortable and easy to park, while the wider headlight coverage ensures the greater safety at night. Additionally, the appearance of the scooters may be more aesthetically pleasing to women. This is another example of extremely accomplished women in the field of the engineering. Not all, but not all of them are educated in STEM. Actually, their logo is designed by her for her. Even with a good STEM education, you still need a sound business model for the world to see and recognize your work, and that incorporate a whole lot of the professional skills. Next one, please. Another crucial consideration during the energy transition is the social justice. This is a great example of the use of the sustainable energy to support disadvantaged communities. Phoebe, a PhD graduate in sociology at the Taiwan National University, noticed this issue and thus created a successful inclusive business model based on the concept of ESG. It is called the Green Well Initiative 100 Plus. Please, next. By way of the traditional charity, the public donations are only a one-time limited offer that will be drained soon. By donating to GW 100 Plus, the impact of the contribution are magnified, as the contribution can fund the installation and the maintenance of the PV rooftop system, allow the selling of excessive electricity generated, and ensure the proper management of the system. This creates a self-sustaining cycle of the production for disadvantaged individuals. It is a sustainable, inclusive business model that will make GW 100 Plus rare and valuable. Next one, please. This innovation action encompasses all the three elements of ESG. For E, it means installing high-efficiency energy-saving lights for social welfare organizations, resulting in a reduction of the approximately 180 tons of the CO2 emissions over the next 10 years. As the social side, that means putting SDGs into the practically by connecting charitable actions and giving back to the society, particularly to those who are disadvantaged. As the G is concerned, governance, inviting employees and corporate customers to participate in the project as we seek to expand our partnership. Next one, please. You see from the pictures, right now, the initiative includes more than 500 power plants, such one is like a mini or even the micro power plant. These are also more than 30, already have the 30 green charity actions. The GW100 plus means they are expecting to have more than 100 charity works before 2030. So that they are going to build more the mini and micro power plant. This sustainable energy for all, this will make the sustainable energy for all and leave no one behind. Additionally, this creates many job opportunities within lower barrier to entry, unlike offshore and offshore wind power, which requires high level of expertise to enter. You can see more than 10,000 people, they are involved and work properly in the sustainable field. Next one, please. And I talk about our work also. The main job for this foundation of the NGO is for education. So a large part of the TASTE workforce focus on education and training. As I was the first minister of Environmental Protection Agency, the children who have grown up today are the results of environmental education we implemented back then. Therefore, I believe the greatest influence can be achieved by starting with education. Over the past 6 years, there have been more than 19,000 participants in various courses, workshops organized by TASTE. Among these courses, we have seen the trend women are leading the charge in sustainability. From 2 days training courses to 12-day training courses, the female participants usually account more than 60%. Even we have some competition or examination, the ratio usually is 60% to 40%. The women participant is ahead of men. Next one. Okay, this next page. Next page, please. Okay. Let me take the TASTE for another example. Women is going to outnumber men in sustainability. Actually, right now is outnumber men in our NGO right now, with increasing numbers of the females hired in TASTE. Although today the managerial level still about a little bit more men than women. However, some will be outnumbered by the women. Next one. Next page, please. Okay. Finally, I'd like to say about to educate them start from the teenagers. So looking at the younger age group, we organize the sustainability-related painting competitions for students aged from 6 to 15. The theme of the competition covers a wide range, including sustainable energy. Over these years, girls performing is much better than the boys. So next one. So besides that, at the end of this presentation, I also would like to introduce the 2 events that TASTE is going to organize. In July, TASTE will hold the second iteration of its exposition, where the sustainable energy will be one of the main themes area. Many relevant government agencies, business, and NGOs will showcase their exhibit. And we also welcome the international participation. Next one. In November, we also have another 6th iteration of the Global Corporate Sustainability Forum, with the main theme being the ESG and SDGs, and also the sustainable energy, including the gender equality, and more. I encourage everyone, if a chance, to welcome to participate in this event. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Thank you.
I'd like to step in for a moment. And, you know, there are so many points within this presentation, which were quite interesting. So that's why we decided to put the question and answer forum here. And first, I wanted to just point out that both of our first two panelists were highlighting the importance of moving women into leadership positions. That is an area that Taiwan is truly a model for being able to incorporate more women outside into like sort of key leadership positions, but also because I don't know if you picked this up, but I found the two examples very interesting for two different ways. The first one with Gogoro, the scooters, was that they created a woman team that was successful because they used gender disaggregated data to design and market a clean energy and safe vehicle. So the retail managers took a poll and found that women actually rated safety very highly. So then when they engineered the scooter, they added things like the guardian light that Dr. Xian alluded to. They also changed the structural design to make it easier to park and maneuver because they understood the kind of space this scooter was being used in. Another thing that I had found was that when they did a market survey, the company itself was surprised because it actually found that 52% of the electric scooter market in Taiwan was women. So they understood that there was a demand. So I found that example very interesting because we're talking about women as consumers, women as producers, women as designers, and we're also talking about women as leading all of these in every single one of these areas in this particular market. And then the second example that he pointed out of Sunny Founder was very, very interesting too, because the original company began to attract capital by crowdfunding. So it used a sort of different model, which allowed ordinary people to invest in and take part in the company. And then the company, as Sumon pointed out, happened to be in solar, which is the most inclusive of all the energy sectors for women currently. So you have thousands of ordinary people investing in these citizen solar plants. As Dr. Xian said, some of them can even be based on a very small individual rooftop model. And so that part of it was very fascinating to me. And one of the things that when I was speaking about this particular presentation, a friend of mine said to me that one of the things that was interesting to her was this concept of the self-sustaining cycle, a sustainable and inclusive business model that you particularly see in Sunny Founder. So I was hoping that Dr. Xian might elaborate a little bit more on the concept of the self-sustaining cycle as being an inclusive business model.
Okay. Well, because for a small unit like rooftop, it's not sustainable. However, if you can have combined hundreds or even 1,000 people, you found a company, and this company can do all the job, start from the installation, maintenance, even for the commercial use, because you have more extra electricity, then you can sell to the public. However, it's very difficult for an individual to do this job. So for the Sunny company, Phoebe, she organized a group to take care of all the business for starting from installation, maintenance, and selling the electricity, then doing all the job for them. For the individual, the first thing they do is they present their rooftop, because rooftop is very difficult to find in Taiwan. The second one, they can join as a partner or not a partner. That depends on their desire. So the business model is become very clear. They take all the hard job away from individual. The individual only they donate their rooftop. Then with the combination of all different 100,000 rooftop, then they can have very good business. However, that's still not enough. So they go another way, go to the big companies for the charity. For some companies, usually they have the donation as a charity to the disadvantages. They take the much bigger money from the big company as a charity. Then they sometimes they incorporate with much bigger organizations or big house, or even the group of the pension people. They join with them and build a rooftop PV system. Then that will become much more easy for them to sustain for the business. So far, this company is sustained and make us almost first of all profit. That is we call the B Corp. That's a social enterprise. It's quite interesting and quite impressive.
Yes, I saw that the company gave an example, which I thought was quite interesting. That's along what you're saying, is that they had partnered with a long-term care facility. The long-term care facility, needed to run medical equipment, so needed a steady and affordable source of power. And so when they partnered with this long-term care facility, and the care facility saved money on their electricity bills by switching to PV power, but then were also able to trade on the extra energy credits and received even income in addition to this. And they turned a lot of this. So when they use this model of partnering together with a larger company, I noticed that oftentimes that contributes more to what, the charity work, the charitable end of green energy as well too. So the surplus energy can be sold by the larger companies as, renewable energy certificates, which brings income to that. But they partnered with very specific kinds of large corporations like this long-term care facility to help them be able to better take care of their patients. So again, I really like this because you're showing the intersection of multiple sustainable goals. You're also contributing to the good health and well-being of your population. So I very much appreciate that you had pointed this model out as well too. I was looking at the time, thinking that I should now make a segue into our next panelist. And I hope, I have another question from the audience here. How does the Taiwanese government offer incentives to encourage citizens in solar power installation and application?
Well, because government have very big project for the solar power and for the offshore wind power. The difficult problem for Taiwan is that because Taiwan is small island and population density is so high and land is so scarcity. So it's very difficult to find big land for solar PV. So the government try very hard to encourage the population, the people, to use their rooftop, and the government offer some incentives for them. However, still we have many difficult problems for the building because structural problem, because sometimes the houses or the building is too old. So even government offers some tax incentives or the other incentives, still difficult to expand their scale. So right now it's very hard for government and the people to increase the percentage of the use of the solar power. Is still very difficult. Even the tax incentive or the engineering assistance, still we have a lot of problem.
And yet you managed to set up NGOs like yours, which encourage that the growth of this market and encourage, so you do have people who are filling the gap for this need, private companies. So we do, I can understand the difference between how difficult it is to give large scale incentives outside of tax incentives. And yet even just the encouragement and highlighting of these leadership positions or opportunities for for private companies to come in is quite welcome at this stage. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and start my introduction for Natasha Nuralanis. So let me tell you something about Natasha's presentation first, and then I'll tell you something about her. So Natasha's presentation is addressing the heart of the transition to renewables, ensuring that women and girls are included and equipped with necessary skills and have the right, what we call sustainability mindset to harness economic opportunities presented within a green economy. Too often, people in rural and off-grid areas do not have access to the necessary skills. Their barriers include things like language, facility in the English language, having exposure to technical language, and also even access to digital devices of any kind, let alone the internet. So we need targeted interventions to include rural women and girls especially. Empowering youth in general can bring systemic change. So now to tell you something very specific about Natasha. She is a member of Pasiwa Malaysia, and she is also an educator. And one of the things that Natasha did was she won a Pasiwa award called the Young Women's Fund Grant in order to create an app, the I Agree mobile learning application. And I'm going to let you tell her a little bit more about this grassroots initiative.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Natasha Nuralanis binti Zulkifli. I'm from Pasiwa, Sarawak, Malaysia, and I'm going to be sharing to you tonight about the development of I Agree, a mobile learning application for children in rural Sarawak. Okay, to begin, this project is specifically developed by the Youth Wing for Young Women's Fund, led by myself and assisted by our Pasiwa members. There are Datuk Dr. Hajah Munirah Muhammad Hassan, our chairman, Dr. Hajah Nurseha Unin, deputy chairman, Dr. Hajah Oria Haji Akir, EXCO member, Dr. Azlina Bujang as the EXCO member, and also Madam Haroni as the EXCO member. It is an honor and pleasure to be granted with Young Women's Fund Award of $1,000 in 2021. The fund has been used as a startup fund for the project, which has benefited the local community, especially in supporting the learning needs of undeserved children in remote schools in Sarawak. Okay. We in Pasiwa Sarawak chapter would like to extend and continue the usage of I Agree to other rural parts in Sarawak. And thus, it is safe to say that this project has also portrayed and reflect one of the Persewa's goals, which is furthering education, training, and literacy programs for all ages, especially children. So with that, I present to you, I agree. Sure. Sorry.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Natasha Nuranis Zulkifli, currently working in Teacher Training Institute, Tun Abdul Razak Campus, Samarahan, Sarawak. Previously, I was teaching in a rural school, SK Semada in Serian, and I have been teaching in that school for the past 6 years since 2016. Teaching English to rural children was one of the best experiences that I ever had. And of course, the experience comes with its own set of challenges. COVID-19 pandemic has affected educational systems worldwide. Undoubtedly, the pandemic has forced the education sector to adopt the new norms for teaching and learning. One of the biggest challenges for the education sector, especially in Sarawak, is the widening gap of ICT. This is especially true for children studying in remote schools where they have no or very limited access to the internet. Hence, the very limited internet access becomes a hindering factor for their participation in online learning. In order to support online learning for rural children, I agree is developed as an innovation. I agree is a mobile learning application with the capability to work offline. It is a stand-alone application. I agree it's a mobile application that provides alternate choice to cater the needs for rural students with no or very poor internet connection. Since I agree will work even on offline mode, the offline capability will allow students to experience flexible online learning. So I agree can help to minimize the urban-rural digital divide associated with internet access and online learning experiences. Quiz in I agree is divided into 3 stages, which are beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So this actually reflects on differentiated learning, which is also known as pembelajaran terbeza. When the children answer the quiz correctly or incorrectly, there will be an indicator. So correct answers will be shown immediately so that the children can learn at the very moment. Another feature is progress tracking feature allows me as their teacher to track their performances and to collect data, the results from the pre-test, quiz, and also post-test. During home-based learning, the tablets are distributed to the children on certain period of time. And there were regulations and also schedule that need to be followed by the children and also their parents. And in school, they use the tablets during English lesson. There are significant improvements in their performances after they learn English by using I agree. Furthermore, there are also changes in their attitude and behavior. I agree actually can be replicated very easily by sharing the APK file to be installed on any Android devices. In addition, this application is expected to help other children to improve their skills in writing simple present tense sentences with the correct verb to be is MR through a fun learning experience.
I can learn English in school and also at my house. At home, I study the notes, then answer the quiz. I can get a certificate after I complete my lesson. I love to learn English more now. I agree, memang best. I like to use these apps because it's colorful. I can learn English grammar and I also learn how to write English sentences. Other than that, the notes are easy to understand. I read them before I answer the quiz. I really feel I agree is very interesting. I agree. Memang best.
Okay, that's all for my sharing tonight, and I hope it can give you some ideas on how to help learning among children in rural areas. Thank you.
I will be honest, I love the video partly because that is a very good question. That question is, if you live in off-grid area and where the entire CSW session this year is focused on closing the digital divide with an assumption that you need to be on the internet and have access to Wi-Fi. So we thought this panel would be interesting because it looks at the question of renewables for women and girls at every single level, including those who truly, because the secondary theme is improving and empowering rural women. So when we're looking to address what could be the actual things or unique challenges for girls and women to partake in the digital world, this presentation could not have come at a better time to answer this question. How do you get exposure to the language that's used in the digital and technical world? And to be honest, as I believe Natasha has said in the past, you know, truly math is now taught in English in most parts of the world. So first is to get, you know, the exposure to the language of the digital world, but then also to be able to use devices in off-grid areas is very important. But now you can imagine with the combination of especially solar, PV solar being spread, where that will change as well too in rural areas. We did have a question from the audience and I would like to send it. I mean, I'm going to read it to you, but I do understand it's a little different from the presentations that were given, but it's an interesting question. One of our audience members works in Northern Ireland, and she says, I'm interested in renewables, but I'm not an expert. I wonder if you could share any information on how skills are being developed to ensure that women can take advantage of these jobs, and any information on how they are being supported. Like, for example, the other barriers, childcare.
Okay, I can start, and I'm sure that Dr. Xian would have some information to support this as well. So from my point of view, based on the research that I've done, women who worked in renewable energies, the way that they have adjusted and learned new skills is mainly capitalizing on the existing skills. So as we see in Dr. Xian's presentation as well, and my presentation earlier, that not every woman working in the solar PV sector actually work in STEM, right? So they are working in administration, which is based on their prior education background. And they could be working in the non-technical fields like sales and marketing. If we look at the value chain of renewable energies, there are plenty of opportunities to be trained in order to be part of the value chains. And the non-technical field would be the obvious choice for those without the technical background. But those who already in the STEM education or the technical non-STEM fields, such as in law, in accounting, in finance, they can be part of that value chain which has a high demand in these areas. So that's why there's some barriers here in the STEM education that has to be addressed. But there are also barriers in other fields that exist regardless of whether it's renewable energy or not. We have to keep in mind as well that the renewable energies inherited the sector from the traditional energy sector, mainly oil and gas, which was mainly male dominant. And over time, it has made progress in this area. And there are room and opportunities for women to learn new skills based on these job areas and then enter the job market. There's another question though afterwards. Once you have overcome the barrier of entry, how to stay in the job. And this become obvious in my own study and also in other international research in this area. So I will leave it here and then let other presenters answer. Dr. Xian, would you like to answer in this question or?
Oh, I think the whole idea is that renewable energy is a brand new development. It completely divided away from the traditional fossil energy system. So everything is new. That means present a good chance for everybody, including male or female. They are even on the same equal basis for all. So we don't talk this about which barrier or not barrier. Both for male and female, they are the brand new field. In the brand new field, you can start from different kind of approach. At the meantime, renewable energy, we talk only about energy production. However, besides energy production, have so many different kind of business inside. For instance, for selling, for deal with the local people, with the community, you have the so-called environmental impact assessment that you must deal with the government to talk about the new law and the new regulation. Because for most of the countries, in most of the countries around the world, the law is not complete. It's not perfect. So we need some many kind of lobby and discussion. For those kind of job, it's no difference between man or woman. They're all same. So I think you think about this field, look about Taiwan. Actually, the female is outnumbered the male in the high position job. For instance, general manager, board directors. Actually, the number is much higher than men. So I think we don't talk about the barrier. Actually, it's the way now we are working hard, go forward. It's good for men or also good for ladies. There's no difference at all.
Natasha, do you have any thoughts as well about overcoming some of these barriers?
Okay. Hello again, everyone. I would like to just add on a bit on the digital gap. And English is actually, as we all know, English is considered as a universal language. So in order for the children, for them to learn or to be excel in their studies, and when they excel in their studies, they will be managed to get job, and they will be given opportunities when they grow up. So in order for them to achieve that, they need to master the language in order for them to learn. Okay, so that is why I emphasize on the usage of English, and that is why I come out with this idea, and with the help of Persewa members, and also with the help of the grant that we receive from Persewa, actually we can make something good for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. I looked at the time, and so I'm going to say in conclusion that the running thread of this panel in my mind is how ordinary people have access to the economic benefits of renewables, and at which point we need to begin changing our mindset. As Dr. Shen pointed out, there should be no gender difference in exploring a new field, but also a future that is immediate, healthier, and leave something for our descendants. And so I would like to just say it as my last and final thought is that it seems to me that in all of our talk about women in renewables, what we're saying is that this notion of social entrepreneurship and of having a sustainable cycle is very, very important. That we are just trying to bridge the gap between a person who consumes energy as a person who is actually more thoughtfully and deliberately participating in their own future. So my view is that women are not just energy users, as may have been seen in the traditional industry, that within a green, energy industry, women are also a key part of the value chain, as Suman said, because they can be providers of energy, they can be educators that prepare the skills and the mindset of the youth to participate in this. They can be entrepreneurs, and they can also be decision makers and leaders in the direction of this industry. So that would be my concluding remarks. And at this point, I would genuinely like to turn the floor back over for one final thought from Suman, because she is the true expert in this field.
Thank you, Carrie. So just a final thoughts that will tie all this together. It's fascinating to hear perspective from Dr. Shen and Natasha and Akari as well, picking up on their presentations. So renewable energy growth is inevitable. In my view, this is an opportunity for us to adjust our mindset into a more sustainable way of life. And there's opportunity for women and men and younger generation, especially, to look into this and decide the kind of world they want to live in and the part that they would like to play in this. So building up skills from a very foundation of the education, as Natasha mentioned, and also looking at more specialized education in order to take advantage more on your aptitude. I think that will be very important. Also, overall, together as a community, we change and then we adopt business models and also a different way of working that is suitable for a different kind of world that we are now moving towards too. So that will be my final thoughts and tie this together. Thank you, Akari.
Do you think we could stop the share and ask everyone if we can just take a picture, a screenshot of the gallery afterwards? Be a nice commemorative thing. Suman, if you stop your screen share, then I can take I should have said it more directly. So just no one has to turn on their cameras, but if you feel like turning on your cameras, I'm going to take a screenshot of our panelists and of everyone who's here today, because we really do appreciate your time that you're taking to be with us today and to listen to some very different ideas at different from different spaces. So we do appreciate that. So I'm going to count down to 3 and say I'm getting ready to take the picture. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much for being here today. And I think this concludes our presentation.
Mhm. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.